But Rajdeep, Sandeep, and Gaurav, to bring you in, Rajdeep, the point that you were, finishing earlier, it is, as historic it might be, it's multifaceted, multi-layer in the current geopolitical context. Just about a week ago, we had European envoys who did, in fact, write a critical piece on India inviting President Putin. They were, of course, the MEA did say that was unacceptable. And now there seems to be a change of, at least tune where the European envoys and European nations are concerned that maybe because India is close to President Putin, that we try and build that kind of pressure on Russia to possibly, move towards peace.
It's very interesting. Something happened which I haven't seen in many years. Probably it never happened unprecedentedly. 3 ambassadors, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, wrote an editorial piece on Monday where they claim to have targeted Putin. They say we had nothing. It wasn't about India. It was about Russia. One day later, the Russian ambassador hit back and spoke about European betrayals. Now, I haven't seen when you have a diplomatic war being fought in the Indian media in this manner. So clearly, look, let's be honest. Mr. Putin is a divisive figure. Gaurav says he's not a pariah. The fact, though, is that several countries continue now to have embargoes, and the United States itself, it's the hypocrisy of the United States. Why have they, if he's not a pariah, imposed 25% penalties on us for doing our dealings with Russia, when large parts of the world continue to do it without the same impact? Certainly, China hasn't had the same impact. So there are a lot of double standards and hypocrisies there. But the truth of the matter is, Vladimir Putin is seen, after Ukraine, as someone who splits the world. You can see him as a strong nationalist defending his country's interests, or you can see him as little more than, even the ICC seems to suggest, someone who's been accused of serious war crimes and someone who's invaded the territorial integrity and sovereignty of another country. So it just depends who you talk to. And India, I think, has in its own way managed to achieve some kind of a balance between the two sides. At a time when the world is polarized, India plays the kind of balancing role. So you'll probably see President Putin and Prime Minister Modi here today. Who knows, 3 months down the line, if there's a successful trade deal, you'll see Donald Trump coming and being coming to India. So India is the place to be.
So European Union anyway will be coming to India once again, and Europeans are very keen
for 26 January, Gaurav, as our guest on Republic Day.
On Republic Day. Now this is what shows you India's power, India's growing stature in the world, and India not letting the West talk down to India, Rajdeep. That's the change that's coming now in India. We're not letting the West decide what's important for us or what we should do. Initially, they did try. India should criticize Russia. Why should we criticize Russia? It's for, Russia to decide what's in Russia's national interest, and it's for India to decide what's in India's national interest. So that's exactly what is happening. And now the West is coming around to what India can actually do, play a big role in ensuring that there is peace. India is the only country, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Rajdeep, I reported both, Rajdeep and Preeti, I reported when Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Moscow, and then when Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to Kiev, and then when he went to Kazan once again. Only country that can talk to all sides and hope that there is a solution, and hopefully there will be forward movement towards peace. Now what Russia is now saying, what America is doing is wrong. It's blatant American double standards that they are taking Russian fuel, they're taking fertilizers, but they're imposing penalties on India. So it's American double standards. Why should we be penalized for it? Or why should we say, just because Europe is not talking to Putin, it doesn't mean he's a pariah. It's their fight. We are not involved in that fight.
Sandeep, would you want to come in? Because this is whichever way one looks at it, it's a tightrope walk where India is concerned because of the optics of it, and there will be ramifications and consequences of the optics and what happens tomorrow. With what Rajdeep also touched on, with what we've been speaking on, we will have the trade delegation from America come in the next 2 weeks. Hopefully, we are looking at, the tariffs coming down from a 50% to a 15%, but all of that could very well be contingent on what our, deal with Russia is, where oil is concerned, where trade is concerned, importantly, where defense is concerned.
Absolutely, Preeti. And India is the only major country in the world that has logistics support agreements with both the Russian Federation and with the United States. We signed the logistics support agreement with the United States in 2016, and just a few hours back, in fact, the Russian Duma has approved the logistics support agreement with India. And this actually is in a microcosm what India's policy is all about. We tread the middle line. We pursue our national interests. For us, a relationship with the Russian Federation is as important as the relationship with the United States. And we are prepared to see both of these relationships independent of each other. And we would not want to be dragged into what the Europeans think or what they feel or they want us to do their bidding. That's not going to happen. India has always pursued a middle path and it will continue to do so. And we are going to see evidence of that in the next couple of weeks. We will pursue this line with the Russian Federation, with President Putin, because Russia brings a lot of things to the table when it comes to whether it's energy security, whether it is military, cutting-edge military technology. Russia
the only
gives
country,
us...
Sandeep, that actually shares cutting-edge military technology with us, because everybody else is giving us old weaponry.
Absolutely.
France,
Preeti, the BrahMos missile would not have come into India's inventory but for President Putin. And I've heard this from the people who have made the BrahMos missile program happen. Dr. Shivtanu Pillai has told me that but for President Putin's personal intervention, we would not have got the BrahMos missile. It's an extremely political missile.
S-400 as well, Sandeep.
But for Operation Sindoor, we would, but for that BrahMos missile, the Operation Sindoor would not have been the success that the BrahMos missile, that the BrahMos missile had performed the way it did. And the S-400 missile, Preeti, that's another example of a political missile that was steered by this government. Prime Minister Modi pushed for that despite US sanctions. So these are the two war-winning tools that were given to us by Russia. And that's the reason that we value Russia's partnership so enormously. Nuclear-powered attack submarines, they've helped us with our ballistic missile submarine program. These are kind of, collaborations with no country in the world will give us. The Americans will not even let us come anywhere near any of their nuclear submarines. What to talk of leasing one or even getting technology to build one. So that's why the Russian-Indian relationship, this partnership, this extraordinary strategic partnership is so important. It's so valuable for us because it protects certain core interests that both countries have laid way back in the time of the former Soviet Union. And that continues in the time of the Russian Federation.
You're right there. And it's a relationship, Sandeep, that has weathered many decades. And the reason why it's weathered and evolved is it's constantly changed. And especially in the current context of multipolarity and the geopolitics of it all. It is, a trapeze act. It's a tightrope walk. It's not easy in terms of diplomacy. And let's hope we find and we continue, which we are on a path of finding, treading the same path. All right, I believe, all right, we're getting an information that the motorcade is now pulling into Lok Kalyan Marg. My colleague Pranay is joining us from there. Pranay, the last time around you were giving us a sense of what is possibly on the menu. Before we come to you, and I'll cut across, Pranay, just give us a moment coming to you. The minute the cavalcade comes in, the motorcade pulls in, just give us a heads up. But taking one quick comment from everyone, Rajdeep, Gaurav, Sandeep, Rajdeep, to pull you in. For a moment, let's just step back. Yes, it's a historic visit, very important. We've got the best coverage, but we also have the biggest coup, if I can say journalistically. We've got the president of Russia speaking to us for 90 minutes, even before the flying Kremlin touched the tarmac in the national capital, Delhi.
That's right. And I think the last time he spoke to an Indian news channel was way back in 2002. So it's over 2 decades. He's a man of who doesn't let his inner thoughts out too readily. So to have him speak so extensively certainly gives you an opportunity to get into the mind of the Russian president. And as we've seen in recent years, you can like him, hate him, you can't ignore Vladimir Putin. He remains a significant figure on the global stage. I think it's interesting in that interview, for example, where he's asked about G7. And he makes it very clear, I'm not interested in these global bodies. I'm happy to be out. Point suggests that Europe is in recession. Europe should be the one worried about its economic future and not Russia. Now, to some extent, that might be grandstanding, but the truth of the matter is Russia has shown that over the years, it's weathered many a storm. We can have our own views on whether the attack on Ukraine was justified or not. My own view is that Russia has much to answer for. But the fact is, at the end of the day, from an Indian perspective, Russia has been an important all-weather friend. There's no doubt about it. My only concern is Russia over the years, as a result of what the United States is doing at the moment, has also moved once again very close to China. We've seen an axis emerge between Russia and China in recent times, and that should concern us. I mean, it's all very well for us to have the bonhomie between India and Russia. We also expect the Russians to ensure that the Chinese recognize that they cannot take India for granted in any manner.
Right before.
You know, it's happened we just had a recent incident, more of a diplomatic incident involving an Arunachali citizen of India and the way the Chinese treated her. We've seen what happened in Galwan. We have to be careful of the Chinese.
In Operation Sindoor.
And I think the Russians must be told that in unequivocal terms. I think the Russians recognize that. And I think they recognize India's concerns over China. They will also recognize India's concerns, I hope, over Pakistan. I mean, we had Shahbaz Sharif go to Moscow a few months ago, literally, seeking Russian armaments.